Peace, blessings, and love to each and every one of you who's watching today. My name is Brother Shelton with Ministries of Righteousness, here to deliver a message that God has put in my heart to deliver. So today, we're going to talk about racism, talk about race, the origins of racism, and how it's still affecting a lot of people still to this very day. And we're going to talk about the different forms of racism that's used against the people as a means to control the people. But before I get started, I just want to begin with prayer because there's a lot of evil currently going on in this world. And it seems like it's heightened with this development that's going on in what is called Israel, modern day Israel, Gaza, in that whole area over there. All the tragedies that's happening because people just can't seem to settle their differences peacefully. The ongoing battle between Russia and Ukraine, and just all the other things that's constantly going on, the fight in every aspect of humanity right now. So I want to pray for all of us. Holy Lord, Creator, thank you for all that you do each and every day. Lord, we ask that you give ear to our prayer, that you cover us all, that you bring peace supernaturally in this world that's filled with hate and evil, that people that claim to have earthly, humanly power is enforcing evil, using military tactics as a means to inflict harm and not considering all of the effects that is doing to all of humanity, yet alone the people that's in those areas that's having to be casualties in the middle of some things that they have no control over. Destroy the works of all those that's performing these evils. Bring them to justice. Bring them to divine justice as soon as you possibly can. Pray for all those families that have already lost their loved ones. Pray for all those that right now that are displaced, that's having to flee their homeland, their homes. And pray for everyone else that need healing. They're going to need healing over there. So Lord, just bring peace and help restore this earth into a peaceful place, Lord. So Lord, just continue to bless us. Give ear to our prayer. And once again, forgive us. Forgive us all. Help us to realize that we are all connected, that we are all one family in your eyes. So let it be and let it be now, Holy Creator. Amen. These wars that's currently going on has a lot to do with race. Some of it goes back to ancient times, biblical times. Some of it is classic warfare, those that have more weapons per se, that wants to dominate and just take what they want to take because they can. A lot of that is why people decide they go to war, kind of like the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. Russia decided that they just wanted to take Ukraine back after Ukraine has been independent for a long time and been doing their own thing. But Russia decided they want to take Ukraine back, so they imposed their will because they felt they were more powerful. So all these things, has to do with differences of beliefs. Usually when those things happen, there's a lot of hate involved in that, a lot of envy. It goes into what is called prejudices, racism, race on any front, whether it's spiritual differences because of spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, policy differences. All of those things plays a major factor in this thing called race and racism. And again, it's all witchcraft. It's crafted carefully. And it has been crafted for a long time by a small percentage of the population that often like to refer to themselves as the elites, people that refer to themselves as the Illuminati, gatekeepers, all these different names they use as symbolism. Truthfully, there's only one race, is the human race. And we may be different skin colors, but that doesn't mean we're not all family. And I'm going to prove that today. When it comes to this topic, it's still a very, very highly sensitive topic. So I'm going to try to do the best that I can to enlighten everyone. So where does this thing racism come from? As I have a few questions that we need to just look into. Question number one, what is racism? You probably have your own idea on what racism is. And that idea of what racism is probably something you've been trained to believe what racism is. What is the purpose of racism? Where did racism come from? Where did it begin? Why do people hate each other because of the color of somebody's skin? How did racism in America especially become about skin color? Why are oftentimes people of color, melanated people as we like to call ourselves, people with color, with whether you're black or brown or any other shade in between, why are we often targeted by police and other political powers that be? I'm going to try to answer all these questions today. One of the first things I was able to pull is this article from PBS that was written by a person named George M. Fredrickson. And it says, the historical origins and development of racism. The title of the article says, Race, the Power of Illusion. As I was just saying, how racism is witchcraft. The power of illusion. That's what this article says. Race, the power of illusion. The historical origins and development of racism. I'm just going to read a few things on what this article says. Here's what it says in the first paragraph. It says, racism exists when one ethnic group or historical collectivity dominates, excludes, or seeks to eliminate another on the basis of differences that it believes are hereditary and unalterable. An ideological basis for explicit racism came to a unique fruition in the West during the modern period. Now, the West is considered all the countries and lands basically west of Egypt and that whole region over there. So as I go on in this article, it also says that the period of the Renaissance and Reformation was also the time when Europeans were coming into increasing contact with people of darker pigmentation in Africa, Asia, and the Americas, and were making judgments about them. This article starts to deal with how basically the historical origins of how racism became more about the pigmentation of a person's skin color than previously, as it was in ancient times and in biblical times, which is also ancient times. A lot of race differences in those early days had a lot to do with different beliefs, religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs that divided people from one another. I give you a very strong example. I'm going to say this outright because I don't want no one to think I'm anti-Semitic, as they say, or anti-Jewish or anything like that. I'm about all people because we are all truly one race. We're all family. I'm just using the facts. Now, there's been a whole lot of hate and evil towards the Jewish community over a long period of time. And it goes back even to biblical times, in ancient times. It is taught in Scripture, and it is believed that if you were Hebrew, Israelite, nowadays Jewish, that they believe that they are God's chosen people. I'm going to stop right there. Just think about that. One group of people in the whole world believe they are God's chosen people. Out of all humans in the world, that's the belief they traditionally follow to this very day. If you believe that, and you have all these other people in the world that if you wasn't considered from the Hebrew, Israelite, now they Jewish belief, then you were considered what is called a Gentile. If you were considered a Gentile, it was looked at that you wasn't God's chosen people because you wasn't Hebrew, you wasn't Jewish, you wasn't an Israelite. So right there is going to create a division. Right there has created early racism. For some people to come out and say, hey, we are God's chosen one, and the rest of the people that's not Jewish, not Hebrew, not Israelite, you're not God's chosen one. That would be offensive to many. And that is kind of how the beginning of when the Roman Greco Empire came into power, how the Babylonians, when they was in power, and a few other nations was in power, came to say that they set out that they was going to conquer the Jewish, Hebrew, Israelite people by any means necessary because of that belief. They didn't stop, and they didn't stop, and they didn't stop until they finally conquered them in 70 AD. It's when the Roman Empire finally conquered the Jewish, Hebrew, Israelite and put them under their domain, finally. That's early racism. And it was not about skin as it is a lot now in the Americas. It was more about a belief system. One group of people having a belief system that's different than another group of people having a belief system. And that created conflict. That created hate. And some could look at it as that's very boastful for a group of people to say, we are God's chosen one. And the rest of the world population is not, because they're Gentiles. Or if you wasn't Jewish, you was in or Hebrew or Israelite, looked at as a heathen, or things that was not considered, quote, holy. That's part of it. And then if the story holds true to what it says also in the scripture about the division of races at what they call the Tower of Babel, because they were trying to build some massive tower to heavens, just saying that's the story. That God confused the languages and divided the races. So that's another form of where division supposedly came in. I choose to get to the facts. And what I believe is that all of us are God's children. I believe that you have free will. And because you have free will, you have your own mind to make your own decisions. You have your own mind, your own intelligence to do like I am doing, and a whole lot of other people, to go and research and get to the facts of everything. Because there's been so many things that's been hidden, so many things that has been buried with many of our ancestors, because especially being a black person, a person of color, that much of our ancestors, the information they had died with them. They didn't have enough things documented. And later things are coming out now that has been discovered. But you have to get to all the facts, because whoever controls the pen or the writing, or whoever was tasked with writing down and documenting, has the advantage of what you believe. And if I can convince enough people that whatever I write down, whether it's true or not, if I can convince you that the story I'm telling you is the truth, and you share that with whoever, and I pass it from one generation to one generation, that creates a very powerful thing. And that's also part of this witchcraft of race and racism. This next article says race and racism in the European Middle Ages. And this is written by a person named Geraldine Heng. And it says that for generations, race studies, scholars, historians, literary critics, social scientists believe that race and its pernicious spawn, racism, were modern day phenomena only. This is because race was originally defined only in biblical terms, as I just said, and believed to be determined by skin color, physiognomy, and genetic inheritance. The more astute, however, came to realize that race could also be a matter of cultural classification. It also says that yet even after we recognize that people could be racialized through cultural and social criteria, that race could be a social construction. Oh, I like that word, a social construction, meaning they constructed this thing about race and racism. The European Middle Ages was still seen as outside the history of race. I speak only, again, this is the author of this article that's saying, I speak only of the European Middle Ages because I am a Euro medievalist. It's up to others to discuss race in Islamic, Jewish, Asian, African, and American pre-moderates. It goes on to say, but today, in news, media, and public life, we see how religion also can function to classify people in absolute and fundamental ways. As I said, religion is also witchcraft. In the early days, as I illustrated, that was some of the first developments of racism. Being racist because of your beliefs, believing that one group of people call themselves God's chosen ones, and everyone else that wasn't part of that group was looked at as maybe not as God's chosen one. That's going to create problems. That's like, it goes back to modern day white supremacy, that in my ancestors' time here in America, like my great-grandparents, my grandmother, and even my parents, and even my generation to some degree, that if you were a person of color from slave time, even to sometimes in this day, that you still looked at as a second-class citizen. That if you are a person of color, you're a second-class citizen. Just think about that. A group of people feel that because of their white skin, that they are better and above everyone else that's not of their same skin color. So that's similar to what I'm saying about if you from a group of people that says you're God's chosen ones and everybody else is not God's chosen ones. If you're saying that you're better than other people because you're white, and that if you're not white, then you're a second-class citizen, it's parallel. It's kind of very similar in some ways. You can see how that can offend people, that could rub people the wrong way, because we are just people. We are all on Mother Earth as people, as human beings. And a lot of our pigmentation has a lot to do with the area you were placed while you was on Earth, while the area where the ancestors was placed. If you're placed in hotter climates, you're probably going to have darker skin. That's just how the whole universe and the cycle of the sun and earth and all of that works. If you're in colder climates, not so much. And over the years with the ice age, and people had to hibernate in caves to get through the ice age, and there was a certain point in time when it was very hot on the earth. So it's all type of things like this that has led to the development of different skin tones, and just quite naturally, that's how God created it. God is a multicolored God. The whole earth is filled with a wide spectrum of colors. So why are people more concerned now about the skin color of somebody's skin? Like I said, witchcraft used to manipulate, dominate, and control a mass amount of people because they want you to bow down to their will and not be in the will of God, our Creator. As I go on with this article, check this out. It says race is one of the primary names we have, a name we retain for the commitments it recognizes that is attached to a repeating tendency. Oh, ain't that the truth? It's attached to a repeating tendency. As I was just saying, that's the manipulation. If it can repeatedly allow people to keep that going, then the people that doing it is using propaganda, social media, nowadays, television, newspapers in the early days, and whatever other form that they can come up with to use that to keep this repeating tendency of racism going. It's what they will keep doing. And they, like I said, they said this is attached to a repeating tendency of the gravest import to what? To demarcate human beings through differences among humans that are selectively identified as absolute and fundamental, so as to distribute positions and powers differently to human groups. That's what racism is all about. It's what I'm telling you. It's witchcraft. I'm going to repeat that. It says to demarcate human beings through differences among human beings that are what? That are selectively, check it out, this is the word they use, that are selectively identified as absolute and fundamental, so as to what? To distribute positions and powers differently to human beings. And here's what this says: in race making, strategic essentialisms are positioned and assigned through a variety of practices. Wow. In race making, strategic essentialisms are positioned and assigned through a variety of practices. What did I say right before I just read this? Witchcraft. Witchcraft. It's what they use to control and dominate humanity. A few uses this. The few that controls, that owns and controls the world monetary system. The few that controls and owns what you see on television, that own the television stations, that own the radio stations, the magazines, everything. The few, they're the ones that's constantly keeping this repeating tendency going, as it just said in here. It goes to say race is thus a structural relationship for the management of human differences, rather than a substantive content. Race is a structural relationship for the management of human differences. Are y'all hearing this? So what is racism? Now we're starting to see the real picture of what racism is and the origins of it. It's witchcraft. It's been carefully planned and plotted using a variety of practices, as it says. What and why do these people want to keep God's creation, because we all part of God's creation, divided, is the question we must ask. The easy answer is to keep the majority of the earth's resources for themselves and make the rest of humanity pay for it, using not God's treasury, but using man-made treasury that's often in paper form, that usually have, depending on what nation you live in, if you live in America, then the face that's on American money, should I say, is usually former presidents. So they make you bow down again to humans, human will, a human, for that money. And it's the same if you're in another nation. It's going to usually be the president or the king. Face is going to be on that money, kind of like in the ancient times. You know, it was a Roman emperor, Greek emperor, Babylonian emperor, whoever it was in those days when they started figuring out how to put a face on what they call currency, to make people feel they need to bow down to those people that control the supply and resources that God gave everybody that lives on this planet, even the animals, to share equally. It's a sad day in this world, and it's getting darker and darker and darker. More darkness is dominating the world. That's why I'm up here trying to share the light, hoping that it'll wake enough people up to where we can influence change to get and do our part and try to get some of all this evil out and allow God to do what he does. It makes no sense why we all have to be still living in a world that makes the overall population of the world basically enslaved to this world economic system. And they use race as one of the main sources to keep people dominated and under control. I hope I did a good job trying to cover a lot of these origins of racism. I believe racism is an absolute joke. We all are part of God's family. God gave every human free will. He left a lot of principles for us to follow that would help us to be within his will and for us to do the right thing. Unfortunately, there's an opposing force of God, opposing spirit. Many people, depending on what religious belief you believe, some of them call that force, that being the devil, Satan, Lucifer, Baphomet. In the ancient days, it was a lot of different beliefs in different gods. Some ancient religious practices, even still to this day, believe in multiple deities. Differences of religious beliefs, as I said earlier, led to race relations having differences. I'm pro-humans. No matter who you are, as long as you're about righteousness and doing the right thing, knowing how to treat another human with respect and dignity, then we are all right, no matter who you are. This whole thing about if you believe this and somebody else don't believe that, because you believe in one thing that makes you better than someone else that don't necessarily believe what you believe. Yep, people are going to have some differences. And those differences, as we see now, leads to war. War leads to death of innocent people because you can't resolve your differences peacefully, because you can't agree to disagree and live in peace and harmony. And it's difficult because some folks are truly not children of God. Some folks choose to follow the wicked one. They do wicked things. They follow that source. And when you take your free will and choose that, then you become a child of the enemy, known as that demonic force, Satan, Lucifer, and all of that, because that's the side you choose. And now you're not part of God's family when you choose that side. No matter how you look at it, all humans, we are family. We all are connected. We all are of the same creator that put all of this universe and everything in it, and what they have yet to find together. We all are part of that creation. We are part of God's creation. I want y'all to think about this, how skin color and all of this foolishness that's been used, as I just said, as witchcraft to control and dominate people for generations is a bunch of foolishness. Is just ridiculous. It's a joke to me. A friend of mine had kidney failure because his kidney was going bad or went bad. When your kidneys go bad, the only way to really try to continue to live is you got to get on dialysis, or you have to get a kidney transplant, which those things are very difficult. It's a whole lifestyle changer. If you're not able to find some person that has an exact kidney match that conforms to your body, that matches your blood type and all of that, then you gotta live on dialysis, which is a very brutal thing. And even when you're going through dialysis and getting these blood transfusions, you gotta make sure when you go to the dialysis center, they have your type of blood that you're able to do those transfusions. So explain this to me, people. How can my buddy, that he was diagnosed with a bad kidney, that his own parents, any of his siblings, or any other relative did not have a kidney that was a match with his? And also explain how his own parents, his other relatives, brothers, sisters, whoever, also didn't have the same blood type he had, but he come from his same mother and father that his siblings came from. God bless my buddy find a kidney, and he had a kidney transplant. How can he have a kidney transplant from another human that was not even no relation to him? Not his mother, not his father, not his brother, sister, cousin, aunt, uncle, no one. But a complete stranger was an exact match. Exact match. Explain that. If we're not all connected, if we're not all family. I know y'all can't, but I can. It's called God. That's how he created. That's how he created. That's what I'm saying. We all connected. Most of the time, if you go to the hospital right now, people that need blood, they can't even get blood from their own mama or daddy because they're not the same blood type. But yet, we tripping over skin color because of this witchcraft. We tripping over religion because one believe this, one don't. We all the same. I just proved it with telling y'all that if your own parents are your own flesh that you are of from your own mom and dad, and even if you have a sibling or other relative, if you have a health situation and you need blood or you need an organ, a lot of times you're not going to have a match from who you identify with as your genetic relative. That lets you know we all are genetic relatives. That you have to go way down somewhere else, maybe across the globe, that someone that you didn't grow up with, that you didn't know, that's your family from somewhere else, from thousands of generations that live on the other side of the globe, is an exact match with you and has the same blood type and is an exact match with you. We all family. If that's not enough proof for y'all to recognize that we all family, we all are of the same creator, we all from the same tree, then I don't know what else will convince you. Because racism, race, that's a damn joke. And if I was a person in a position of power, it would be a law that if anybody choose to have an issue of race with any other human, they get a lifetime sentence in jail because it's ridiculous. Shouldn't hate nobody because of their skin color. Shouldn't hate nobody because of their religious beliefs. And you shouldn't feel that if you don't believe what somebody else believes, that because they don't believe it and you do, that you're better than them. Or if your skin is white, that you're better than them because their skin is not white. That's a joke. Complete joke. I do my silent protest today. Says stop killing us. And I'm talking about stop killing people all over the world. There's genocide going on over there. The deal with Israel and what they call in Hamas and that whole area was going on in Ukraine and Russia. And wherever else in the world that's having some conflicts that they ain't publicizing on the television because they only pick and choose what they want to put out there to keep you under a spell again. Stop, people. Just stop. Stop all this racism. Stop hating people, man. Let's love each other. Yeah, we all have differences. Sometimes you have differences with your parents sometimes. Sometimes you have differences with your children. Sometimes you have differences with people you work with. Doesn't mean you kill them. Don't mean you want to go to war with them because you can't agree. You got to learn to agree to disagree and still live peaceful. If we don't come together, people, like I said, put all this crazy thing about skin color and all this other stuff that keeps people divided, religion, race, different beliefs. We don't come together on the terms that we're human and that we all basically have the same necessities, that if you got a family, you got to feed them, that you got to have a roof to stay, the basic necessities that we all need. If you don't come together and realize that we all have the same struggles, then everything else is hopeless. And now God is testing the world. God is testing humanity. See how they're going to respond to all this wickedness. I pray all is well. Until next time, keep your head up and stand firm and figure out what your purpose is that's in the will of God the Creator. So that's my time. I'm Brother Shelton, Ministers of Righteousness. God bless you all. Stay strong. Try to be at peace.